time. So I'm excited. I want to share this story with you guys because this is about husband number one. I guess I was 18, 19 years old, had just moved here from Kentucky to the big ATL. I was like the Beverly Hillbillies. If y'all were too young, just go and look that up. It was a TV show back in the day. But I was in the big city now, and so I enjoyed myself and had fun. And at that particular time, I was staying with relatives and going to school, and I found a job, and so I was excited. I was dating one of my good friend's brother. He was handsome and tall and chocolate, just like I like him. And he was such a gentleman. He was he was just an awesome guy. Y'all are not going to like me after this, but anyway. We had talked about marriage. I knew that he wanted to marry me. Honestly, I felt like I wanted to marry him. I knew that I wanted to be a young mom, get those kids out, pop them out, and, 40, because in your 20s, 40 sounds like you near dead. So, but I wanted them out of the house and everything so I could live the second part of my life. And so I had it all planned. But he wasn't going fast enough. So I met this other guy at my job, and he just happened to be the friend of a friend. And they introduced us, and we hit it off. The problem was I kind of wanted to make sure that, I guess, to just see if the grass was greener on the other side. And I didn't tell the first boyfriend. And he just happened to find the love letters from the new guy. And I heard him. And I don't do regrets, but if I did, that would definitely be one of them, because he really was a good guy. And if I pray that he didn't take out on the next young lady what I did to him, but unfortunately sometimes that happens. So if you see me and it's you, I'm sorry, honestly, from the bottom of my heart. So anyway, met the new guy, hit it off. We would go places and hang out and talk about the future. And he was in the reserve, and it was nice. He had this girl that was a friend that I think was more than a friend. And I think that was probably one of the reasons that I was a little hesitant, because I wasn't quite sure where she fell in the equation. And so, honestly, I just told him either her or me, because if she's just your friend, she's a little too touchy-feely. Yeah, it would make anybody, if it was a guy doing it to his girl, or if it was a girl doing it to your guy, you would feel that the way she was carrying herself next to my man, it wasn't sitting well with me. So needless to say, he kind of distanced himself, which I appreciated. So we got married. Had a nice, beautiful marriage. Everybody came, relatives, and probably a good 150 folks. And we were in love. Yeah. So, first red flag should have been we couldn't afford rent without his best friend that he was living with before we got married. He still had to stay because we couldn't afford rent. First red flag, probably should have talked about that before we got married. Second red flag was the girl. Still not 100% sure they weren't screwing. Oop. Partaking. That's what we'll say. Sorry. Then, in my head, you have to realize, I plan. I'm a planner. I plan, and then I plan, because I have to have a plan for a plan. So the problem was I didn't discuss my plan with my husband before we got married or after we got married. Because in my head, you got married, you bought a house, and then you had kids. My mother scared me, and I am a believer, and so I was trying, and no shade to anybody that did not. My children did not either, so no shade. My mother scared the hell out of me, and that's the only way that I can put it. Not to come home with any babies and no husband. Come to find out years later, probably after between husband number 2 and number 3, I brought it up. You was like, you told me not to bring any kids home without being married. She said, fool, I was trying to get you out of high school. I was not anticipating that you were going to sit here and date these morons. Well, she should have told me that a little earlier, but I didn't want to do anything but be a mom. I didn't, had college, but I just knew I wanted to be a mom. Now, the other thing of that is when you've got the mothers of the church and they saw how kids would gravitate to me, they said, well, you ain't gonna be able to have kids because these babies over here love you too much. Of course you ain't gonna be able to have kids. And I started to believe them. So I was on a mission to prove them wrong. So we're married. It's been about a year, 2. I'm ready to get married. Not get married. I'm ready to have a baby. And he was like, literally, he looked at me like I had 2 heads. And he said, Pam, I don't want kids. What? What do you mean you don't want? We're married. What do you mean you don't want kids? He was like, I have no desire to have kids. Whoa. So, needless to say, I had to make a decision. Toward the end, and you will learn, you never divorce the same person you married. I'm going to do a whole little story time on that because you don't ever marry the person that you marry. You don't ever divorce them. It becomes almost like you have been invaded by human crazy people when you're getting divorced. And that's why I'm trying to stop people and doing my part and trying to share my story so therefore people don't go through divorce. So I knew that if nothing else, either he was going to resent me because I trapped him, or I was going to resent him because I didn't have kids, or he didn't want to have kids. Now, he was not lying. After me, he would only date women that had children and older children where he didn't have to even pretend to be their father. I can't get mad at him. We didn't have the discussion. Now, to me, the first thing that came to mind, hell, I was too young to be somebody's wife. I just was. But 2, there was no conversation, and you can't have a successful relationship without communication. But those are some of the things that we should have talked about before marriage and not after marriage. So those are the things that I want to share with you all. So anyway, that is husband number 1. Stay tuned for husband number 2.